Bluff City Media presents Tigers Live with Francis Carlota. Join Francis after every Memphis Tiger game as he breaks down each matchup, player of the game, and upcoming games. Now, let's get to the show.
Hold on. Shh. Let's. It sounds like FAU's arena. It's very quiet, Francis Carlotta. It's very quiet.
Silent.
Very silent.
Very silent.
Should we respect FAU and their fan base by doing this show in whispers tonight? I think we should whisper.
Yeah, I'll do a very light intro. I'll just say,
do an intro for us.
Yeah, I'll do a soft intro. No, let's go, y'all. Let's go. Dominant. Absolute dominance for the Memphis Tigers, 90-62, beating FAU in Boca Raton. What a win, Kenny! What a win! I see Roman. You want to add him up to you?
Let's get Roman up in this piece, man. Roman.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Shh. We're being quiet because it sounds like the FAU arena right now.
It's silent.
Come on, this ain't. I'm not good at the ASMR thing. Come on.
Okay, no ASMR. All right, go ahead. My bad.
How you feeling, Roman? Give me your thoughts.
I mean, first off, just what a showing, especially in the second half, right? I feel like the trajectory of this one really changed once Dain Dainja got his fourth foul. I mean, Memphis obviously had the big start early, but then Florida Atlantic pretty quickly crawled their way back into it, and you were thinking, okay, this is another typical AAC game for Memphis, probably going to win, but it's going to come down to the wire. But once Dainja picked up that fourth foul, it just feels like to me everything kind of changed because he added that dimension that Memphis was previously lacking. Yeah, Haggerty and Hunter had very good first halves, but you didn't really have anyone else to complement that. Dainja added that in the second half, and I think that was the ultimate separator here.
Dain was playing. It was a man amongst boys. I said it looks like he was playing on a kid hoop. He was just an absolute beast out there on the floor. And you hit the nail on the head, Roman. After he got that fourth foul, it's like he flipped a switch and he became unleashed. He became the Dain Dainja that we all know he can be. Up to that point, I thought he looked visibly frustrated. Up to that point, obviously getting to the four fouls, missing some what I thought were pretty decent looks for him around the rim. He looked frustrated. But as soon as he got that fourth foul, things changed. He looked like an absolute monster. But we'll get to player of the game, and I'm sure we'll talk more about him in a bit as well. But Kenny, give me your thoughts as well. An absolute dominant performance, back-to-back dominant performances for the Tigers after whooping Ole Miss. Now they whoop FAU. How you feeling, Kenny?
Man, I feel good. I mean, obviously, the question has always been, hold on, I'm real quick. I'm changing the ticker because I accidentally left the Ole Miss in there. Sorry about that, everybody. I've been doing this a lot lately. The New Year's has wrecked my brain, apparently. So I don't know what's going on. But no, man, I mean, obviously the big question about the Tigers, over the last few years has been, what are they going to do in the conference schedule, right? Like, what are they going to do? They came out of last year 11-2 in the non-conference schedule, and I think proceeded to go 7-8 in the in conference, and so you just go,
No, they went 11-7 in the AAC. They went 7-8 in their final 15 games overall.
Thank you. And so you just go, what's it going to look like? And it's just crazy to me. I was talking to somebody about this earlier. The AAC for a conference that claims that Memphis is the premier team brand in their conference, they don't do Memphis in any sport ever. Do they do Memphis any favors? And to start off the conference schedule with the two probably most, I guess, highest ranked teams in the net in the conference outside of Memphis and FAU and UNT is just wild. Obviously FAU on the road, UNT back in Memphis, but man, the game was just, it was a beat down from the word go, and it felt good to see it. The Tigers needed it.
I mean, to be fair to the conference, schedulers or whatever, they probably first off didn't expect North Texas to be as good as they are right now, considering what they lost in the transfer portal. And in their mind, they're like, okay, UAB is probably going to be Memphis' toughest test, and we're getting them we're going to give them UAB
That
later in the season.
Kind of that Houston game, right? Like,
but that obviously did not happen because UAB has been quite the disaster so far. And Florida Atlantic, I think, has probably exceeded the expectations a little bit. I mean, FAU is probably one of the only AAC teams that has a win in quads 1 or 2 right now. I mean, FAU is a quad 2 win over Liberty.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is one of 4 quad 2, or at least one of 4 projected quad 2 opportunities that Memphis is going to get here in American Athletic Conference play. And including tonight, 3 of them come in Memphis's first 4 AAC games. After that, they don't get another one until like February 17th against at Wichita State. And that's it. That's the only real quality opportunities Memphis gets in its conference. Every other game besides the 4 quad 2s are either quad 3 or quad 4. So, yeah, obviously it's as tough as an AAC schedule is in 24-25. This is about as tough as it could realistically get for Memphis to start.
Yeah, you mentioned Kenny, the absolute dominant performance. Basically, seeing people in the chat calling it a belt to ass. Like it's basically what it was from the jump. We talk about the start that Memphis needs to get off to, especially against these opponents in the AAC. They can't just sleepwalk their way into games and just hope and pray that they're going to find energy. They got to keep getting off to quick starts, and they got out to another really lightning fast start today. I have them they went up 17-4 very early on in this game, and they were just rolling them. And they had dominance on the glass as well. And you heard a lot of talk from the announcers, and I'm sure we'll have our gripes about the announcers in a bit, but you heard a lot of talk with the announcers talking about how this team feels different when you talk to them, when you're around them and shoot around and practice, and when you cover them. Roman, you're around this team a lot. Kenny, you're around this team a lot. Both of you are very plugged in. Do you all feel the same thing, that you think this team seems more locked in, more cohesive, and has the chemistry that, well, frankly, they were lacking in the past? Do you all agree with that?
Yes, of course. The one thing that I point to immediately is not even the player's demeanor, but Penny's. Penny Hardaway's demeanor in front of us is totally different than anything that I saw my first year covering the team last season. But I've been around in the city for his entire tenure, and it's basically different from anything I've seen at any of those points as well. Penny seems to come into this, or seem to have come into this season with a whole new light perspective on things. The way he's talking is different. The language he's using is different. He's taking a lot more accountability for his own mistakes than he ever has before. I mean, last year was marred by various incidents of him kind of putting his players under the bus. You're not seeing any of that this year. Every single time, it all starts with me. This is where I have failed. This is where I have come short in the past. And this is where I still need to get better. And I think that, approach of accountability is starting to really extend to the rest of the team as well. The messaging that he seems to be giving the guys, based off of everything he's told us and what we've seen in the Our Road series that Zach Wall is doing such a phenomenal job producing for Memphis' social media right now. Based off of the little snippets that we're seeing from those things, it seems like there is a widespread culture shift with this Memphis team compared to others, and this kind of goes without saying because Penny's the head coach, but it really all starts with him.
Yeah, we talked about this on the Bluff podcast this week, where we were talking about this being a different team compared to the previous years, and we can be done with the previous year conversation. I think.
Yeah.
Now
I think so too.
But
no, they never performed in the AAC game like this at any point.
Like this, yeah, like we can be done with that. But one of the things that I talked about in it was that Penny Hardaway is just a different coach. He's a different coach this year, and if Tiger fans who have been fans for a long time, who have watched Penny's teams play, if they're not listening to the things that he's saying, if they're not watching the decisions that he's making and seeing the change in Penny Hardaway, that is a willful choice by them to not see it. It is a night and day type difference. He talked about having to look himself in the mirror and make decisions on, like what kind of coach he wanted to be. And he's been very upfront, almost to the point where I'm like, you don't have to say everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to tell us everything. You can hold some back, but it's what endears people to Penny, is that he's just as real as it gets. And I mean, he talked about it. He said, man, basketball coaching wise, like I think I've been fine, but it's more so the program management that I've needed to deal with. And you look at I mentioned it on the Bluff podcast. And I do think it's true. Like, we, at the beginning of the season, Roman was about a month or two before the season started when he fired the coaches.
It was exactly 2 months to the Missouri game. Exactly
2 months,
60 days prior.
60 days prior to the Missouri game, he made a decision to fire the majority of his coaching staff. And everybody was like, oh my God, the drama, right?
Yeah. Here we go again. Yeah.
Hindsight being 2020, I think we can clearly look at that decision and go, that took balls by Penny to do that. And the fact that he did it is an example of that growth that we're talking about here. The second decision that he made, in terms of program management, is he told Tyreek Smith to go away. Like that, prior to this season, the malcontent, the creating division in the locker room type of player would have stayed around. This year, Penny gave him chance after chance after chance to get right with his team, and he told him, and finally was just like, you got to go away. Like, we can't do this anymore. And so to be honest, like those are the things that you look at and go, this is the growth that we're seeing in Penny, right? Like the ability to make really hard decisions that impact in a positive way his program. And that's something that we haven't seen in the past. And so, yeah, I think that is a very fair, a fair thing to look at with Penny, is just the amount of growth that he's had since last year.
Yeah. You also, both of you made great points about. Go ahead, Rowan. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just, going beyond Penny, though. I mentioned at the top that he just seems to be in higher spirits in general, just overall. And I think you can credit that. I think it kind of coincides with not just Penny making his own self-realizations and changes, but also Ed Scott coming in and Tim Duncan, Terrence Lawley. This new administration, I think, is making a widespread effort to improve the program. And I think the fact that Penny feels as if he has more support around him in that area than he ever has before, I think that's a massive contributor to this change that we're seeing as well, that may not be talked about as much moving forward.
Yeah.
I think also we can sit here and talk about Penny and the decisions that he's making on the court, off the court, whatever. But dog, for real, the players though are doing what needs to be done. Like this team, was widely critiqued as, what is this roster? This doesn't have the name brand that outside of a PJ Haggerty, right? Like everybody knew what PJ Haggerty was. We saw him play multiple times last year.
Tyrese Hunter.
And right. But Tyrese had a kind of a bit of a reputation coming out of Texas, I think, in terms of like what kind of a player he was. But I'll say, like, this team is as cohesive and as talented as I think any team that Penny has had. And I think that the one issue that we've all talked about is just the depth. But you take that top 5, top 6 guys, they are as talented as any team Penny's ever had, and more cohesive and more together and play better basketball together. And they are doing what needs to be done. Like there's a level of the decisions that Penny's making on the court, but also he's got some good. The guys on this team, man, are holding true to what Penny wants them to do, and they're playing well.
Yeah, they're extremely high character. They understand what's expected of them. They play extremely hard on both ends. They just simply know what it means to be a Memphis basketball player, and you didn't really see that from last year's group, and that's the most noticeable change overall on the court for sure.
Yeah, and dovetailing that into talking about the game a little bit as well. This performance was complete, a complete performance from the entire team. 20 points from Tyrese, 11 from Colby, 19 from PJ. Musa had 7 points, 11 boards. Dainja, as we talked about at the jump, he was amazing, 16 points. Then you got some contribution. You had PJ Carter hit some big threes. Jared Harris hit a 3. Koji got minutes. Dante Harris looked good, especially on the defensive side of the ball. This team is slowly starting to find its form, find its footing. And if they start hitting on all those cylinders and they stop with the damn turnovers, just sloppy with the sloppy turnovers, if they can find a way to curtail those turnovers, I keep saying it, y'all. This offense is really good. That the other than the off the court stuff that both of y'all mentioned very, very well, the roster construction of this team, they all seem to be really complementary of each other. Their skill sets match what they all want to do on the floor, and they're starting to find that groove, especially really on both sides of the ball, that is needed for this team to make deep runs. This was basically pretty much a complete performance on the offensive side without their turnovers, and then on the defensive side, they were switching incredibly well. You didn't see many missed coverages. They were communicating very well. Yeah, FAU couldn't hit the broadside of a barn from three, but you can credit that as well to how good Memphis played on the perimeter defensively. They were pretty locked in on their assignments. This was a pretty complete performance on both sides of the ball, and that goes to, again, Penny's. He's basically he runs this team, and he's the one who constructed this roster. He's put together his staff, and he's the head of the snake, and he's doing a phenomenal job so far. No question at all. He's been phenomenal.
You've said it. Everybody in the comment section, belt to ass the whole time, right? Like it was. I wanted to ask you, Roman, what are your thoughts? If you looking at the box score, Penny played 10 guys tonight. Obviously, in the non-conference, he had a very limited roster, very limited depth. Played at most maybe 8 guys most of the time. And the person who played the least amount of minutes of those 8 would probably get like a minute or 2, right? Tonight he played 10. Did it feel normal to you? Like, did it feel like the guys that got into play, like Jared Harris got in there to play, Dante Harris got into play, PJ Carter played more extended minutes? Did it feel it didn't feel, I'll just say, it didn't feel forced to me. It didn't feel like they were just trying to force those dudes in to play. They came in and they produced when they were out there.
Yeah, what's interesting is that you mentioned how you would see some of these guys get in a little bit in the non-conference portion of the schedule, but they would only play for like a minute or 2. Not only did Penny play 10 guys tonight, but every single guy played for at least 6 minutes or more. And I think that's an opportunity that you have now in the AAC part of the season. Now, you want to tread lightly with this because, again, you don't want to get to a place where you're underestimating these teams and you're finding yourself in dogfights that you don't really need to be in. But in saying that, this is lesser competition that Memphis is going to be dealing with for the next 3 months of the season. And with that comes a chance to perhaps develop some more depth that wasn't previously there. I'm very interested to see, what Dante Harris's role particularly is going to be moving forward. I think he only got about 8 minutes or so tonight, and I just think he's a more talented player than that, especially in a league like the American. I think you're going to see him at some point develop more of a role. And the hope for Memphis is that by the time you're done with the AAC and it's on to the NCAA tournament, you have the proper final depth chart established and ready to, unleash it on whoever you play in March Madness.
I wanted to ask both of y'all, of the guys that got minutes that haven't been playing a lot in the non-conference schedule, which ones who are you most interested in seeing how they fit with an expanded rotation? Who plays the best? You said is Dante Harris the guy you're looking at, Roman?
I think it's both of the Harrises. Obviously no relation there,
but
both Dante Harris and Jared Harris. I think both of them are by far the most interesting guys to look at for a potential expanded role. Dante is, of course, an extremely experienced little 6-foot guard, potentially come in and be, a true backup point guard off the bench that Memphis has been kind of lacking the entire season. And Jared Harris, we've been talking about him, I feel like, since the showcase back in October. He is an athletic freak, and he can shoot the ball. He can make plays defensively as well. I mean, at some point, a guy as talented as him is going to find some sort of role, whether it's at some point this season or next year for sure.
What about you, Francis? What do you think?
Yeah, I echo that as well. Don't forget PJ Carter.
Yeah.
You can't forget him. He's just such a good shooter. He's always going to be reliable as a floor spacer.
Yeah, but you already know what
and
PJ Carter's role is, though. You already know what it is.
yeah,
He's a guy who will shoot and play some defense.
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm just saying that it's still important he's going to be an important piece moving forward that I hope he gets decent playing time and run.
Yeah.
Because he's needed to spell what is like as we all know, an amazing starting five, but a starting five that's played an insane amount of minutes up to this point. So I think PJ is going to be important as we move forward. But yeah, I'm with you, Roman. It's definitely the Harrises. I've talked about Jared Harris, how much I like him. Dante, he's quick, y'all. That man is fast. He plays like a blur, especially going downhill. He had a nice drive late in the shot clock, got past his man basically with ease, and then dished it to Cisse, who got fouled. That's the type of creativity spark that Memphis needs off the bench when you're trying to find energy. Dante Harris seems like the guy who can provide energy to this bench unit when you need to spell Tyrese, when you need to spell PJ. But also Dante can defend. You can see his instincts just watching him on defense. You can tell that he has great defensive instincts, and you can't. That's awesome, man. Like that stuff is so important. You need so many players like that. So yeah, I'm with Roman. Definitely Harris's. Those are the two that I want to see more of for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
Dante's a real hustler too. He was running all over the place tonight, whether it was chasing rebounds or running out to the perimeter line to defend. I mean, he just brings the energy all over the court, like you mentioned, Francis. I think he can be a very valuable piece moving forward.
I'll just say this. Dante better learn how to break the press the way that Penny wants to, because they were up by like 30 points with 3 minutes left, and Penny cussed that mug out and said, "Get off the floor." Like, everybody's talking about it in the comments. They're like, "Yo," and again, like, that's such an interesting even dynamic for Penny, right? Like, up by 20 something points with 3 minutes left in the game, and he's still cussing players out and getting upset about them not breaking the press. Because here's the thing, it didn't even result in a turnover. It almost resulted in a turnover, right? And it's interesting, man. But I do think Dante provides a veteran skill or a veteran player with a certain skill set that will just kind of help the Tigers as they continue to move forward. Because as much as I love Baraka Okoje's game, like, I think he's so good. I think he's a good player. I think he's a dog. Dante definitely brings a little bit more experience than I think Baraka does, and you need that guy. You need a guy like him spelling Tyrese and PJ when they're up by 30. So
Jordan got chewed out too in the middle of the
second. Did he
really?
Yeah,
he did. He was out for like 6 minutes in a row. That's probably the main reason Dainja even stayed in after the 4 fouls.
Yeah,
is that Penny was so mad at Jordan for whatever reason that he kind of benched him temporarily there.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask y'all because as you mentioned, Jordan not playing and then Dainja with the 4 fouls. Forgetting the fact that Dainja was so good in this game after the 4 fouls. Forget that. How did y'all feel when you saw that Dainja was staying in the floor with 4 fouls early on in the second half? How did y'all feel?
Well, again, it seemed to be a pretty immediate reaction to me to Jordan kind of being benched in the middle of that game. Jordan made a couple of bad plays before. I mean, he turned the ball over on the right wing. I think like a few minutes prior to him getting subbed out, the broadcast team mentioned that Penny was chewing him out on the sideline as well. So that was probably the main reason Dain stayed in there. But I think it also showed a relative amount of faith in Dain. Like, hey, you're an experienced player. You've dealt with foul trouble plenty of times before, even this season. He went off after getting 4 fouls against Ole Miss. This is really the second game in a row where Dainja has kind of took off after getting 4 fouls. So I think it really is a case of not only punishing Jordan, but Penny also like saying, hey, Dain, I believe in you. We think you can get this done, despite, getting 4 fouls and, just being able to stay on the floor and being able to produce like he obviously did.
Well, we've talked about that with Dain. Like, it's a really good sign that Dain was able to kind of change up the way that he played, on defense, especially not picking up any more ridiculous fouls, right? Because we've talked about this from the very beginning of the year, how Dain was going to Dain was going to feast against some of these AAC guys, right? And
Yeah.
and it's going to be really interesting to the point where it kind of makes me nervous because I know college basketball refs and how they ref, and I could absolutely see.
And they're the best, right, Kenny?
They're the
That's
best,
refs.
man. They're just
best.
so good at what they do. They've all played basketball at a super high level, and so they understand the game really well. They understand how it's played. But I could just see Dain picking up some silly little fouls because he's going up against weaker competition in the AAC. And it was, I think, a good sign to see Dain be able to stay aggressive, but also not get, as John Crispin liked to say, chaotic, right?
God,
like as John Crispin.
How many times did they say chaotic? How many times?
I'm gonna put it out there to all the people that are watching the show. I think John Crispin is doing the North Texas game on Saturday.
That's what they said. Yeah,
both Kevin Brown and John Crispin are. Yeah.
By the way, those two are the most insufferable people I have ever heard on a broadcast. I can't. The two of them together, it's like who can be the most snarky. Like let's out snarky each other. Like that's what it feels like. But we should let's do a challenge for the Saturday game. A Saturday, you can rest on Sunday, do a drinking game. You got to take a shot every time John Crispin says chaos about the Memphis Tigers,
or synonym of chaos. It's like something akin to that word.
Something chaotic.
I mean,
something.
Francis, you don't do that because we need someone to host Tigers Live. But
correct. I would pass out. I wouldn't be able to host, or it would.
None of us are going to do it, but if the fans want to, that's their prerogative.
Yeah. Well, Roman, you can do it if you want. I think that would be great.
You're going to be at the arena. You could do it at the arena if you want to, Roman.
Oh, yeah, you're going to be at the game.
Just put the bill. Just put the bill on BCM. It's all good, man.
No, but as y'all talking about Dain, I had said this earlier. I think Dain, the 4 fouls came more so from, in my opinion, from pure frustration. He didn't have it on the offensive side up to that point in the game. He was missing what were easy looks for him, like easy turnaround hooks, easy shots for Dain that he can make in his sleep, and they just weren't falling. It happens in basketball, it just happens, and you could see him visibly frustrated, which I think led to him getting 4 fouls pretty quickly. But then after those 4 fouls, as Trey Lastly said, he looked like 2001 Kenny Stubblefield up in here. That's what they look like, Kenny, right?
I'm just going to tell you, Trey's trying to get his job back. And so, Trey, you're rehired. Okay. You can come back. You can come back to Tigers Untapped.
There you go. Yeah, no, but Dain was great. Dain was great. So let's do player of the game. As I was talking about Dain, I actually think I'm curious what y'all have to say, because I think it's not just like super simple, but maybe it is to y'all. So Roman, Kenny, whoever wants to start, give me your player of the game.
I mean, it's tough because Haggerty and Hunter both played so well, especially in the first half. But I think it just has to go to Dainja for his response after getting 4 fouls. I mean, to be able to produce in that way while being in that kind of foul trouble, that's pretty insane. So I think you have to give it to him.
I think his impact on the game was really, really felt, not just in the way that he played, but also in the way that he helped extend the lead, right? And this is what you want. This is what Penny wants in a big, is to be able to, throughout a game, change up the way that they score, right? The first half was Tyrese and PJ. The second half was feed the big man in the paint, and it worked, and it extended the lead out. Like, let's not forget, they were only up by 10 going into the second half, and they ultimately outscored them by, what was it? They ended up winning by 28. Was it 28?
28.
They ended up winning by 28.
They led by it.
Yeah. They led by, they were in the 30s for a couple of seconds there. Like, I mean, Dain's impact in the second half not only was powerful for him, was a good sign for him, but the way that his impact impacted winning for the team was also extremely a really good sign to see for the Tigers moving forward.
Yeah, I think I gotta agree with you all. If Dain had 16, 5 boards, 2 steals, 1 assist in the full game, but then that's one thing. But he basically did it in a half. Those stats came in basically a half, and I think Yeah, in just a half. I don't know how many minutes he played in the second half off the top of my head. I don't know if you know, Roman, but he was absolutely dominant for about a 10-minute spell of the game where he was unguardable, just unguardable. He could do basically no wrong. Every shot he made went in, except for that dunk that Timo says, I wish Dain made that dunk. It would have made my night. Oh man, if Dain made that dunk, I would have screamed in where I'm watching the game and everything. I would have lost my mind because that would have been crazy. Oh man, but what I love about Dain too is he's such a good passer of the basketball. My word for Dain is cerebral. He's a very cerebral basketball player. He always knows where players are. He had some really nice finds to corner shooters. One of them, I think it was a PJ Carter 3, I think, during that sequence where Dain was just impacting the game at an insanely high rate. He's just a damn good basketball player. When he's fully locked in and he's not getting frustrated by missing some shots or in his head for whatever reason, if he's locked in, I mean, there's not many people who can just guard him straight up because his footwork is too good. His touch around the rim is too good. Yeah, especially in the AAC. He's too good. I talked about it in the Discord a bunch, and we've said this many times. He's what we thought Jordan Brown was going to be. We've said it a million times by now, but we're going to keep saying it because I expect Dain to feast on these AAC bigs, and he's
Memphis
awesome.
shot 56% from both the field and from three-point range, by the way.
So crazy.
That is
amazing.
Wild.
Do you remember last year, Francis? You're really locked in on Grizz Twitter as well. Do you remember last year when everything was going sideways for the Grizzlies, and they were all this conversation around the roster makeup around the guys that were playing and the David Roddies and the Jake Laravias and the Luke Kennards, and it was like the certain skill sets that they brought to the table. And there was one phrase that went around Grizz Twitter that said, "This is the kind of player that we want." Do you remember what that phrase was?
I don't remember right now. Give it to me, Kenny.
Just give me a hooper, man. Somebody's just a hooper.
Yeah.
Just give me a hooper.
Yeah.
Remember that? I think Anthony Sane, from the Anthony Sane show, Bluff City Media. We're going live tomorrow at 12, by the way. I think he was the one that kind of popularized that, where it's just like, just give me hoopers, bro. And that's what Dain is. Like, you talk about cerebral and playmaking and all that. The dude is just a hooper, bro. Like, he just is a hooper. And
he's a guy. Dain's a guy who could play until he's 50 years old and play good basketball until he's whatever age. Like, he's a dude who's going to go to Rucker Park in New York and just dominate. He'll be 70 years old at his local YMCA, diming people up,
just a hooper,
beating up on dudes in the post. He's just a hooper. Like, he's just a straight up hooper. Yeah,
and
he's
it's
awesome.
So you talk about Jordan Brown last year. Jordan Brown's a big body, but he ain't a hooper. Dain's a big body who knows how to use his body, but he's just a ball player, man. He's a hooper. Like that whole offensive possession where got the ball down to him in the paint, jab step to the baseline, fast move to the baseline, catches it, and boom, pass out to the corner. Was it PJ or was it Colby?
Yeah, I thought it was PJ.
I mean, just that's the kind of stuff that it's like, if the Tigers are able to do that on a consistent basis, they are going to be so tough to beat, man. So tough. Because it is crazy. Roman, 9 of 6. What were they, 9 of 16 from the three-point line tonight?
It was 10 of 18.
10 of 18. We asked Penny this a few weeks ago. He said he wants to get them up to 25 three-pointers attempts a game. Is that it?
I actually disagree with that. I think they shoot better from three when they keep the volume lower, because they make the open looks when they're available, but when Memphis gets to a place where they're just trying to chunk up threes and force it, I feel like those are the performances where we see them not play as well. Like, for example, like in the Arkansas State game or the Mississippi State game, where they were just chunking up three-pointer after three-pointer, the offense just didn't sink nearly as well. But when they're more collected, when shooting three-pointers, more selective, and just really make more focused on taking the quality shots as opposed to just forcing up threes, that's where I think you see the offense flow a lot better.
What do you think would be a good number for them? Do you think
I think 18 to 20? Yeah, 18 to 20, like what we saw tonight, is pretty perfect. I mean, 25 on a really good night, as would be acceptable as well. But yeah, I think 18 to 20 is the pretty general benchmark, especially now that you're in the American and you have a player like Dain, players like Musa, who are just so physically dominant compared to most other bigs in the conference. I think you have to put more of an emphasis on trying to score in the paint moving forward. Also, with Hunter and Haggerty being as good drivers as they are, Rogers is obviously known for his three-point shooter, but he can drive. He can shoot from mid-range as well. I think the conference slate is somewhat going to be about Memphis trying to find other ways to generate offense than just being a three-point shooting team.
Yep. We do need it. I'm sorry, Francis. Go ahead.
No, I think that's a really good point, Roman. I've talked about it before. What makes this offense so scary is how there are multiple ways to score the basketball on the offense. They can score from deep. They can score in the mid-range with jump shooters like Colby, Tyrese, PJ. We talk about the lost art of the mid-range in the NBA, which in my opinion it's BS, but I'm not going to get on my soapbox. This team has mid-range hoopers. Guys, you can throw the ball in the post on the right elbow, on the right block, and they can just operate and get a really good jump shot off, and it'll go in. PJ, Tyrese, Colby, all really good at that. And then you have guys who can get to the rim and finish at the rim. PJ, Tyrese, Dainja, Cisse with the alley-oop slams, Jordan if he plays aggressively. There are dudes who can finish at the rim, and then you got dudes who can draw fouls. PJ can draw fouls like really nobody else in the country. He's one of the best at it. Tyrese can get to the foul line. Dainja, if he's on, you kind of have to foul Dainja because you're just unless you're just gonna give him 2 points automatically, you kind of have to foul him. So there are a lot of guys who can get to the free throw line as well. And that's what makes this offense so damn scary, is how versatile and how many options this team has in terms of scoring the basketball. If they just stop turning the ball over, I said this before, if they can get their average turnovers down to about 13 a game, 12 a game, then I think this team could score 90 a night. That's probably hyperbole, but they can be in the 80s easily. Like this offense has that ability, especially in the AAC against weaker teams. There's no reason why Memphis can't just put on a show on the offensive side as long as they're valuing the possession, as long as they're not sloppy with the ball, as long as they're not forcing bad passes. And if Penny's also a grown up might be too strong a word. He's improved as a play caller too. I remember the discourse about Memphis's offense and how stagnant it looked, and they tried to run that Lion offense, and it was like, well, it's more like a Cub offense because the offense wasn't doing anything. The play calls that Penny's running, the sets that he's running, I think they're gorgeous. Like, it's really good actions. The players are executing them really well. I think this offense, if they just stop turning the ball over, can really be an elite offense in the country. And then you pair that with the defensive side of the ball that I'm going to ask you all in just a moment. You pair that with the defensive side that's starting to find its rhythm, and you got a team that's dangerous, a team no one wants to face in March. So I want to ask all defensive side, what did y'all see tonight that y'all loved on the defensive side?
I thought it was more of the same from what we saw in the Ole Miss game. Really, like I mentioned after that one, getting back to more of the fundamentals, more so of the man-to-man defense, really packing the three-point line, not allowing it, or at least, not allowing as many three-pointers as you were previously. I mean, the zone that Memphis was running earlier in the year was getting carved up left and right. It got carved up throughout all of last season as well. And I think Penny is finally starting to abandon it a little bit. The Tigers, they're not running zone as much. They're not switching as much. They're not over-helping. They're not blindly chasing the ball. It is just straight up, man-to-man defense, press guys at the right time, hustle, get, dive for loose balls, that kind of thing, and just see what happens. And Memphis, when they're playing more the scrappy style of defense that, they're good at, they're a very effective defensive unit.
Yeah, I think that, and I might be wrong on this. I'd like to see the breakdown of like the amount of time the Tigers spent in the press today. It didn't feel like as much as they normally do, and I like that because a lot of times the Penny will utilize the press to jumpstart the energy for the team, right? Especially on the defensive end of the floor, where they're not really getting a whole lot of takeaways. They're not really guarding their yard, as he likes to say, very well. in straight up man-to-man defense. And so he'll throw that press out and just generate some chaos, right? Generate some craziness for the other team. And he didn't have to do that as much tonight, and he didn't have to do that as much against Ole Miss because the Tigers have definitely he talked about this a few weeks ago where he said we have got to get better at guarding, and I'll use the phrase again, guarding our yard, right? You sit down, put your ass on the floor, and just guard. And they've done that pretty well. Like we've seen Dain and Musa both kind of get caught in the pick and roll defense, kind of ball watching sometimes, and get late to get back to the roller. I haven't seen that as much over the last few games. They've definitely, the communication on the defensive end of the floor seems to have gotten better in terms of how they switch, how they hedge, how they, whether they're in drop, whatever they're in, they seem to be in a better communication than they have been in the previous however many games. So it's good. It's looked good, and I like that they're getting better at just guarding people and not having to use gimmicky defense to get turnovers. They are just straight up guarding people and getting takeaways, straight up guarding people and getting stops. They're not having to, not that the press is a gimmick, but not having to abandon principles to create, chaos on the defensive end of the floor. So I like that.
Yeah, and just to elaborate on both of your points, to both really good points. The point y'all made about limiting the changing of defenses, not playing a lot of zone anymore. That's really good. That's really good at helping their perimeter defense. But also they're doing that because you have a rim protector in Musa Cisse, and Dain Dainja is a good interior defender as well. So the guards can be more aggressive at the point of attack. If you watch these guards defending the ball, they are up in their grill. They are very aggressive at the point of attack, not allowing easy driving lanes and not allowing easy opportunities for their guys to get by them. And then when they play ball screens, those guards are up on ball screens. They're playing really good point of attack defense, and they can be aggressive because they have an anchor in Musa Cisse who's going to erase everything at the rim. It kind of reminds me of like a Cleveland Cavaliers defense where their guards, they may not be the biggest guards, Garland, Donovan Mitchell, not big, but they're going to play up and force their guys to get downhill and have to score against Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. It's the same idea here. The Memphis Tiger guards have played very aggressive on-ball defense, and that's because they have backline defenders who can stop dudes whenever they get downhill and get to the rim, if they do get to the rim. And to your point, Kenny, about pressing, again, also kind of the same thing. I didn't notice Memphis press a lot today either. I didn't think it was a big part of their defense, but I do love, though, and I've noticed it a few times, I love when Penny calls on a press after a media timeout.
Yeah.
I love it. Oh, yeah. I love it. Or after a timeout from the opposition to stop a Memphis run. I've seen Penny do that multiple times this year, and it's basically resulted in a turnover every time because it catches the opposition so off guard. They're not coming out of that timeout thinking that Memphis is going to press you up by 15. That's not in their minds. They're also not going to come out of a media timeout thinking Memphis is going to press you if it's like if Memphis is up or a close game or whatever. That's just good coaching from Penny. Like, just timely usage of the press is really good, and I think it's going to be just the fact that Penny's become better as a coach and reading the vibe of a game, the ebbs and flows of the game. I think it's a big progression point for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Wayne Kelly says they're good enough to guard without the run and jump that tends to give up easy baskets at times. Yeah, that is one of the things that I think Penny's teams in the past have kind of had to use that press to, like, and it results in easy baskets at the rim. You're not seeing a whole lot of that right now, and I think they're good enough to not have to do that. They've got the rim protection they need, right? Like, having Musa anchoring that back end of that defense is just it should allow the guards, I think, to feel more freedom to just play, to get down and guard the 3-point line and not have to worry about, hey man, if my guy gets past me, I got former defensive player of the year in a Power 4 conference behind me that can block shots. And I think, let's be frank, he got called for a couple of of goaltends tonight. Musa did that. Were they
Yeah.
goaltends? They didn't look like.
I don't know.
goaltends.
Yeah,
They look
they
tough.
look like goaltends to me.
They look tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tyrese also got called for a foul while chasing down I think a Baba Miller dunk
Yes.
that that he blocked. And on the first look at it, we didn't really get too many good looks of it on the ESPN broadcast. But from what I saw, I'm not completely sure that are we completely sure that he got a body there? Because it looked like he got all ball to me. So yeah, we saw a couple of calls like that for sure.
Hey, did anybody watch the handshake line after the game? Did anybody see Penny and Baba talk after the game? Listen, I can say it because I'm not with the program. That dude is good. I like him.
Yeah. Kenny, it's January 2nd. I'm not ready to deal with the transfer portal right now.
Let's go, Roman. It's never closed, Roman. It's never closed.
For that. I'm not ready.
Listen,
to deal with the transfer portal right now. It's January 2nd.
By the way, I want to dispel a rumor. Did y'all know what when Penny Hardaway, there's one thing that Penny Hardaway does when good news is on the way, and it's all over Tiger Nation Twitter. Do y'all know what that is? What does he do with his Instagram?
God got me or something like that.
But there's always a video attached to it. Do you know what that video is? It's a workout video. Penny will be on the treadmill. He'll be working out.
Yeah, the workout videos. Yeah, that's right.
Did you know that I have from really good authority that is not on purpose? And I think that might stun Tiger Nation. That is absolutely not on purpose. He has no clue that that's even a thing in Tiger Nation, that he puts out a Instagram video of him on a treadmill. I'm like, well, there's your tell, dude. Like, there's your tell, because anytime you post a workout video with the God got me hashtag, good news happens right after. And anyway, he's like, that's a thing. Anyway, off topic.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I want to ask you, kind of akin to the discussion about the both sides of the ball. As we look forward, obviously they got North Texas next at home Sunday, January 5th at 4 p.m. Am I right about that?
Yeah, it's 4 o'clock. It'll be either on ESPN or ESPN2.
Gotcha. Okay. So as we look ahead, North Texas, then East Carolina home, at Temple, at Charlotte, then Wichita State at home are the next 5. Why couldn't a performance like this, where Memphis just dominates on the defensive side, plays a basically complete performance on the offensive side, why couldn't this just happen every game? And I know that might sound like a dumb question, but genuinely asking y'all, what do y'all think is going to be the biggest thing that holds this team back from reaching its ceiling in the AAC? Is essentially my question.
I think it just comes down to the fact that, these players are still humans at the end of the day. And it's just, to put it, as plainly as I can, human error is just, likely to occur at one point or another. Players have talked about that at certain points. I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to, because if we're going to take anything away from tonight, it's that, this is among the best competition that Memphis is going to get in the league this year. Yeah, North Texas is a little better than FAU in the net, but they're around the same level type of team. FAU probably has better wins than North Texas does. So if this is the best that the AAC is going to offer Memphis, hypothetically, yeah, you're right, Francis, this should be happening every single game, but it's just not going to, because it's not how basketball works. It's not how sports work. That's not how humans work. It's just not how things really work in that manner. I mean, it could happen again on Sunday because, Memphis' first AAC home game. Perhaps you'll get a bit of a higher attendance than expected because of the momentum that's the Tigers are kind of running on right now. So maybe you'll see another blowout. But, North Texas is also a very scrappy, feisty team. Russ Hodge, I believe, is the coach there. He does things very well for the Mean Green, despite everything that they kind of lost in the transfer portal with Jason Edwards and CJ Nolan and those guys leaving. I know they won at Minnesota earlier this year. So, yeah, this is not going to be an easy game for Memphis. They're going to have to take the same approach they took to tonight in order to come out with a dominant win for sure, or just a win in general.
I think that it's not. I mean, it's not unrealistic.
Yeah, Ross Hodge is it? Yeah.
Ross Hodge.
I don't think it's unrealistic to think that the Tigers can't have, multiple games in a row where they look as dominant as they should be in this conference. Because let's be frank, the Tigers didn't play they weren't like out of this world. Like, they didn't play out of this world tonight. I mean, they played really well, but they still had 19 turnovers. I think they had. I think like 20. Was it 24 to like somewhere in the mid 20s? They had points off turnover. FAU scored 20 other points off turnover.
25 points off turnovers for FAU.
Right. I mean, there's still a lot to clean up for the Tigers, right? They didn't have to play a perfect game or even a level game to beat Florida Atlantic tonight. They played well. Dain had a really good second half, but he had a pretty mediocre first half. I just think that it's one of those things where it's like this team is just. I think it's okay to say, not to expect almost a 30-point blowout on the road. Like, I will say, I think that Tiger fans can get really crazy sometimes and go, well, now this is the standard. If they don't beat every team by 30, then what's the deal?
Yeah,
that's just not realistic. That's not realistic. But I would just say the Tigers playing when they play with intensity, they should beat every team in the AAC. If they play with intensity, if they clean up the turnovers and play with intensity, they should absolutely beat every team in the AAC. And if they don't, then will they lose games in the AAC? I would say the percentage of them losing a game or two in the AAC is high, right? Like they're probably not going to go undefeated in the AAC this year. But if the Tigers just play consistently with the level of intensity in which they play with, in which it seems like they play with on a pretty consistent basis outside of the Arkansas State game, then I think they're going to be in really good shape moving forward this year.
Yeah. I think, I agree everything y'all said. Very good points. I saw this comment earlier from Wayne Kelly. As y'all said, FAU had 25 of their 62 points off of the 19 turnovers. That's the stat they need to change. Yeah, think about that. If that points off turnovers gets cut in half, to say gets to 12. I know that's not what half of 25 is, but for the sake of round numbers, I'll call it 12. So say it's 12 points off of turnovers, off of like 12 Memphis turnovers, or whatever it may be, then that means FAU scored 50 points. Memphis held a team that averaged 83.6 points entering this game to 50 points if Memphis did a better job limiting turnovers. So, yeah, I think everything y'all said, complacency, human nature, just the fact that it's hard to go undefeated in anything, even in conference play against a lesser conference. It's really damn hard. They're going to get the best punch from every team they face, whether it's on the road or at home. Yep. And so, yeah, I echo everything y'all said. But we'll see. This, at the very least, this team, I think we can put to rest the discussions, the comparisons between last year's team and this year's team. I don't want to hear it no more. I don't even want to bring it up on the show anymore. This is a different team. We're done. Penny's a different man. He's a different coach. This is a different squad. I think we're done with the conversation. We can put that to rest. This is a good basketball team that if they play, like you said, Kenny, with urgency at the start of every game for the full 40 minutes, if they play like that all game, they should not lose any game in the AAC. Will they? Probably, but they shouldn't if they play with that effort, that energy that we know they have. So as we get out of here, any closing thoughts before we get out of here, Roman?
Yeah, we need a quick Bart Torvik. Hold on.
They went up by 7 in Ken Palm, so they're up to 29 in Ken Palm. I have checked that.
Let's go.
I saw from someone that they're up to 11 in Bart Torvik. I haven't been able to check that. Yeah, I haven't been able to verify that yet, but yeah, they're up there. They are up to 29 in Ken Palm, and apparently they're up to 11 in the net, according to various commenters. I haven't been able to check that yet, though. I'll do that right now.
Wow. Hey, that's what happens when you win by 30 on the road.
Yeah.
Against a team
Yeah.
that you should beat. Yep. Good stuff, man. No, it's a good win.
Yeah, up to
move on.
35 in Torvik now. So yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I like that. Because
Yeah,
those are the
and-
metrics that matter. Because those are all about that. That just tells you that's the level of efficiency that the Tigers need to be playing with, right? Like the metrics that the Bart Torvik and Palm are
metrics like the net, Ken Palm, Bart Torvik, they don't care about wins and losses. It simply comes down to efficiency. You know, how efficient you are on the court against the quality of competition that you play. That is what those metrics are pretty much quantified in. They don't care about wins and losses, essentially.
I mean, what a crazy stat! Like if you're a gambler, Tigers were -3.5 favorites in the game,
Ooh.
and won the game by 28 points. Woo! You don't
Easy
see
money.
you don't see Las Vegas
Easy
get it
money.
wrong often. That was bad. That's a rough one.
Yeah, like -3 on the like they got the same spread that they gave Memphis at Virginia.
Right.
And no disrespect to Florida Atlantic, but they ain't Virginia.
That's not Virginia.
No.
No.
Not. Florida Atlantic, I think, is actually rated in the net above Virginia, so I understand it from that perspective, but I just don't know what the again. I'm not the biggest expert on gambling or anything, but that seems like a mistake on the bookies' part there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the Tigers they have now 9 wins, 9 Q1, Q2 wins on the season. Still, they're expanding their national lead in those quad 1, quad 2 games. Good job, Tigers.
The lead is not going to last forever because they naturally just won't have as many opportunities as other power conference schools. But to have it at this point in the year is very telling for where Memphis is at, for sure.
To have it in January is awesome. Yeah. It's a really good look.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Before I get out here and do my outro, I just want to make one comment. Great, obviously, on the bluff, Kenny, you and Gabe are awesome as always. Y'all discussion about the AP poll and whether or not Memphis should have always been bouncing back in, bouncing out, then bouncing back into AP, all the disrespect because of the reputation of Penny Hardaway. I just think that's going to continue throughout the entire year. And you can even see it in Vegas with the line that they gave Memphis in this game. They just gotta shut them up. Like, this team just has to shut up all the haters, keep playing hard, keep blocking out the noise. And if they do that, then maybe Penny will start to get the respect that I think you all think he deserves from the coaching job he's done this year. And so hopefully they just keep this up. Then I think
the point of the conversation was not about like this. It's a take on what the AP poll should be each season, right? Like, you look at AP voters and they take a great example of it is 2 teams that Memphis has played and beat both of them in UConn and Ole Miss, right? Like, UConn lost 3 straight games in the Maui Invitational, and neither, like, I think maybe the Dayton one for the 7th place game was close. Like, it was a little bit close maybe, but like none of them were really that close. And it just, they have not been out of the top 25 one time. And you can't tell me that based off of in that time period after Maui, coming out of Maui, that the team that we saw on the floor should not have been pushed out of the top 25. Yet AP voters took the history of UConn and Dan Hurley and said, we're not going to put them out because, this, and it's obviously gone well for them. UConn's played well since, but it just, those kinds of things don't make sense to me. Ole Miss, having played, was it 3 quad 1 and quad 2 games in the non-conference, lost to Memphis by hit a button. Sorry. Lost to Memphis and went to what were they 25? Were they 25 in the or 24?
They went from 16 to 24, which is the exact, like, Memphis dropped from 16 after they lost to Arkansas State, which in my opinion is a probable conference champion and NCAA tournament team. I mean, not to say that, Memphis, shouldn't have been dropped out, because at the time Arkansas State was a quad 3 loss and Memphis would have been the only team in the top 25 with a quad 3 loss. So I understand why they dropped out there, but Arkansas State is still, again, I think they're a tournament team. I don't see a scenario where Arkansas State doesn't run through the Sun Belt personally.
Yeah.
But Ole Miss got blown out by Memphis and dropped from 16 to 24. And
there just seems to be a level of bias, I think, towards Penny Hardaway in terms of you have to win multiple games to get into the top 25, and you lose one against Mississippi State, and you're out. And you're out.
Like losing,
and it's just,
they should not have dropped out after losing Mississippi State, a team that had no
Nope.
business being unranked to begin with. Like Mississippi State is good. Like
They're
that
good.
team can contend for the SEC championship. Like the SEC is it's been talked about this year as the best college basketball conference of all time. And I think Mississippi State has a chance to contend in that league. I do.
It's just crazy to me that Memphis is coming out of the non-conference schedule with a 10-3 record, with the by some metrics the hardest or the second hardest non-conference schedule in the country, with the most amount of quad 2, quad 1 wins in the country, and they have been bounced in and out of the top 25 3 times.
Yeah,
like that to me,
I think they're currently ranked under both UConn and Michigan State.
It's just crazy. It's just crazy. That to me is just, it just doesn't make any sense, and it's absurd. And I think that they are, and like I said, I probably shouldn't even brought it up, but because I said it on the Bluff Show, we got to stop putting weight to it, because honestly, in terms of seeding, it doesn't matter. To a large part, it doesn't matter.
It matters in other areas, like your perception, your eyes on your program or whatever. Like you got to think about the little things, such as the ESPN ticker, right? They're going to show the ranked teams, and
right.
you that's why stuff like the AP poll is important, because it just gets more eyes on your program and your brand as a whole. So that's why you'd rather be ranked than not.
I agree. No, I mean, I would much rather be ranked than not. But to me, it's just a situation where it's like, if you've heard Penny Hardaway talk numerous times over the last couple of weeks, and everything he's done this year, last year, in terms of non-conference, in terms of scheduling, has been about trying to break through that 8-9 seeding that AAC Conference champions get, right? Like there seems to be a cap, unless you're Houston, to an 8-9 seed, whether or not you win the conference. If you get in, you're an 8 or 9 seed. Penny has done everything he could possibly do to break that cap to get to the 6, 5, 4 seed line. And so that's what he's concerned about. And that's what I think Memphis fans should be concerned about as well, is the seedings, right? And that's where these metrics matter in terms of seeding. And so these nets and these Kim Poms and these Bart Torviks and all that kind of stuff. So the AP is voted by, I think, the AP writers, and a lot of them don't watch basketball. So that's cool. That's good. It's fine.
Yeah, well, on the bright side, if you're able to put up more performances like you did tonight against that Florida Atlantic, you're going to rise up the computers very quickly. I mean, that's how you do it, is blowing out teams you should blow out. I mean, Memphis jumped up by 7 by blowing out Florida Atlantic. If they can consistently put up those kind of performances where they can win decisively against these AAC teams, they'll find themselves in the top 20 of all those metrics before too long.
And they might pass, because of that, they might pass Ole Miss, UConn, and Michigan State. That'd be awesome, right?
They currently ranked below all 3 in the computers, even though Memphis beat all 3 of them. Again, the computers do not care about wins and losses, so it is what it is. But still, that is quite ironic for sure.
Quite ironic. All right, Francis, close us out, baby.
Yeah, to put a bow on that discussion, I'm with y'all. The point I was trying to make is, the only thing that matters now is if Memphis takes care of business in the AAC, and by taking care of business, if it looks like tonight beating FAU 90-62, is that going to happen every night? Probably not. But if they can just take care of business in the AAC, that ceiling that Penny's talking about, trying to break through to get the proper seeding he wants in March, that ceiling will be broken. This team will be a top 5 seed in the NCAA tournament if they take care of business in the AAC. And tonight, to beat FAU 90-62, well, we can all agree that this was a great step forward on that march to March. On the march to March. I hate it that I just said that, but I said it.
Nice job.
As long as Memphis takes care of business, all the stuff about the AP poll, all the discussions about the reputation of Penny Hardaway, the past history of this Memphis program, none of that's going to matter. None of that'll matter. Memphis, they just take care of business, then we'll see. We'll see where they stand, and this will be a damn good team. entering March. But for Kenny Stubblefield, Roman Cleary, I'm Francis Carlotta. Be sure to subscribe to Bluff City Media. Like the show, hit that like button, subscribe to Bluff City Media. Follow us on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. I think Bluff City Media is on Blue Sky as well.
We are, but
okay. All right, not really. Kind of. Like
no, we put an account out there just in case everything on X blew up, but everything's fine over there. Like if you don't, Anthony Sane said it perfectly on his show the other day. If you don't want to, if you're getting away from X because you don't like Elon Musk, stop talking about Elon Musk over at Blue Sky. Like it's crazy. It's like just a bunch of the same things over and over again. And so we'll see. Until they can start doing live video, we're probably going to stay on X.
There you go. So find Bluff City Media on X. You can find me on Twitter at Slugga Sports. Roman ROA Cleary, correct?
Yes, ROA
Clear.
Correct.
Clear. ROA Clear on Twitter. Read all of his articles. He does a phenomenal job covering the team. Find Kenny basically everywhere. He does everything for Bluff City Media. he's the well, yeah, whatever. But either way, until next time, y'all. We'll see you after North Texas. Until next time. Peace.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Tigers Live. If you enjoyed this episode, like and subscribe to Bluff City Media's YouTube page. For comprehensive coverage of all things Memphis sports, head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co and find out how you can become an insider. We will see you back here next time.